What's up guys, this is Ray, and first of all I want to start this video off by saying Happy Father's Day. Hope wherever you are in the world that you can enjoy this day with your pops, and if you are a father, hope you can enjoy this day and relax with your family. And it's for this reason that I decided to create this list of 10 Japanese movies you can enjoy on Father's Day. But before we dive into this list, if you guys are new to Eiga-Man Ray, I upload reviews and discussions of Japanese movies every chance that I get. So if you're new to the channel and you dig the content, you can support the channel by checking out other videos which I've uploaded and also by subscribing. But yeah, on to the list. This list will be very similar to the top 10 Japanese movies you can enjoy on Mother's Day video which I uploaded last month, and in that the rules are going to be very simple. The father has to be, if not the central part of the story, then a main component of the story. And also these movies aren't going to be arranged by any kind of ranking or order, best to worst, worst to best kind of thing. It's just going to be listed out. But I will say that the last three movies, the top three movies which I mentioned on this video, are going to be the three which I've enjoyed the most out of everything I feature. And I won't go into too deep of a review for each of these movies. I mean, that's why I upload all these individual reviews, but I'll just go over everything briefly from the story to a few key points as to why I'm recommending this movie for you. So starting this list off at number 10, we have My Dad is a Heel Wrestler, directed by Fujimura Kyohei and starring real-life pro wrestler of New Japan Pro Wrestling, Tanahashi Hiroshi. The story of My Dad is a Heel Wrestler. It's about this boy by the name of Shota who discovers that his dad is not only a pro wrestler but is a bad guy, and that's something as a child, as an elementary school child, you do not want to find out about your pops. So this kind of sends Shota into a shock, and in order to save face, he starts lying about who his dad is, what his dad's job is, that he's a cool good guy pro wrestler, and this kind of has this domino effect in which his relationship with his dad starts to kind of deteriorate. So this movie is based off of a children's book, and it's a pretty cute story both in the book and also in the movie. This movie is great when being just an overall kid story because it does tell it from the child's point of view. So you have that kind of sense of awe, sense of discovery to the world of pro wrestling. And to those of you guys who are pro wrestling fans, I think you will definitely enjoy all the cameos from New Japan Pro Wrestling that they feature in this story. Not just Tanahashi, but all the other side characters that come on. And the center of the story, it's about, the son's relationship with his dad, how, at first he's kind of embarrassed by what his dad does, but then as the story goes on, the son learns to understand what his dad's job is, and it kind of understands why his dad does what he does, and then it kind of strengthens the relationship. Next up at number 9, we have an anime movie. We have The Beast and the Boy, directed by Hosoda Mamoru and featuring the voice talents of Yakusho Koji. So the story is about this boy by the name of Ren, who after a tragic accident runs away from home and finds his way into the beast world where he meets Kumatetsu. And Kumatetsu is a beast man. I think he's, judging by the name, he's probably a bear man. But anyway, Kumatetsu is competing for a lordship in the world of the beasts. And in order to help out with his obtaining of lordship, Kumatetsu decides to take Ren as his disciple and gives him a new name of Kyuta. And this starts off as a rocky relationship. Kyuta doesn't want anything to do with Kumatetsu, let alone be his disciple. But regardless of how their relationship starts off, they start to train with each other and they get closer with their relationship. And we actually see Kyuta grow into a young lad as the story goes on. And as the relationship gets closer, the more they start to learn from each other. So this movie features not only the type of quality animation you can expect from a Hosoda Mamoru movie, but also you have superb voice acting, you have wonderful music, excellent themes, not only revolving around parenthood and even just, relationships, but even the kind of darkness one finds in himself and what's necessary in order to overcome that darkness. Next up at number 8, we have a smaller story. This one is called Dad's Lunchbox. Dad's Lunchbox was directed by Fukatsu Masakazu and stars Watanabe Toshimi. And this is very similar to a movie which I featured in the Mother's Day list, Mental Harassment. Dad's Lunchbox almost takes that but kind of reverses roles. Instead we have Dad who's making lunch boxes for his high school age daughter. The story of Dad's Lunchbox, it's kind of self-explanatory. It's about this dad, the single dad. I think he recently just went went through a divorce or something like that, but his daughter just started high school, and so he takes it upon himself, or rather he determines that he's going to make his daughter's lunchbox every day. The problem is dad doesn't really know how to cook. You know, he has to start from scratch, from the basics, even just like not only how to cook, but what should go into a lunchbox, especially that of a high school girl. And this is definitely a cute story because the dad, you know, you just can't help but love the guy. He just wants to do his best to make sure that his daughter gets some kind of lunch, even though he doesn't really know what he's doing most of the time. But the story shifts from dad learning how to make lunchboxes to even the struggles when it comes to the relationship between him and his daughter, and the struggles he experiences raising a high school girl as a single dad. Next movie at number 7. This is going to be kind of bending the rule, not bending the rules per se, but kind of reaching a little bit, just like what I did with Confessions in the Mother's Day list. But next up at number 7, we have Inuyasha, directed by Sato Shinsuke and starring Kinashi Noritake. And the reason I say I'm kind of reaching with this entry is that the central theme of the story isn't about the relationship between a father and his children, but the main character is a father, and there comes a time when he has to defend his daughter from evil. But it's about this man by the name of Inuyasha. He's kind of this old salaryman dude, and one day he is at the center of an explosion, and this turns his body into a cyborg. So he discovers that he has all these gifts and powers, which he decides to use to help people. And Inuyasha is packed with a ton of special effects and action sequences that I think set it miles above a typical special effects reliant movie from Japan. And from what I understand, this live action adaptation is not as dark as its source material, but I think, you know, within the context of this movie, I think it was still very fun and very enjoyable to watch. So if you like superhero type of stories, good versus evil and all of that, then Inuyasha would be very entertaining to watch. Next up at number 6, we have Bunny Drop, directed by Take Masaharu and starring Matsuyama Kenichi. And this is also based off of a manga. The story of Bunny Drop, it's about this dude who's still in his 20s, but one day his grandfather passes away, and his grandfather leaves behind his illegitimate daughter, who is 6 years old at the start of the story. And so without anyone to take care of her, Daikichi takes it upon himself to kind of not really adopt the daughter, but take her into his house. So essentially this girl, Rin, even though she's 6 years old, she is Daikichi's aunt. So very reluctant at first, Daikichi starts to learn what it means to be a father. You know, and he goes through all the motions, all the troubles, from shopping for clothes, to even finding a kindergarten, to even, you know, trying to find the best way to have good work-life balance. You know, Daikichi starts to experience and learn it all. This movie has a lot of heart and a ton of heartwarming moments, and I think it owes a lot to the performances of the two leads. We have Matsuyama Kenichi as Daikichi, and we have a very young Ashida Mana as Rin. And I think them two together have very good chemistry as a fatherly figure and daughterly figure, and just the way they experience life together. It's very charming and very smile-inducing. This next movie, however, at number 5, will make you cry, and that is A Long Goodbye. A Long Goodbye is directed by Nakano Ryota and stars Aoi Yu, and Nakano Ryota had also directed another great tearjerker movie in the form of Her Love Boils Bathwater. And this movie kind of is very similar as far as themes and story progression to that movie, but instead of focusing on a mom, you focus on a dad. So in A Long Goodbye, the story is about a dad who's been diagnosed with dementia, and the story basically follows the effects of dad's dementia on his family, his 2 daughters and his wife, and the way they cope with it and all the struggles that they have to deal with as the result of dad doing what he does because of his dementia. And as you can tell by the theme of the story, this movie will dive into a lot of tear-jerking moments. And something that I like about the story, this movie, it has a balance between narratives, because I think in addition to the dad being the central character, the 2 daughters share the same amount of spotlight. At its core, the dad's condition is the central struggle of the movie. But then the daughters also have their own respective struggles to deal with, and this movie goes really well into each and every one's struggles and how they come together as a family at the end. Next up, at number 4, we have Blank 13, directed by Saito Takami and starring Takahashi Issei and Lily Frankie. And when it comes to movies that feature Lily Frankie, I think that he pretty much plays the same characters in each of the movies he's in, and this is no exception. But the story of Blank 13, it's about this dad who bounces on his family, and they don't hear from him for 13 years. And he resurfaces again, but he's dying of cancer, and ultimately he passes away. And so the story is about the sons, and at the funeral, they hear from different people that his father had met in his past. They actually learn more about who his father actually was. And what I like about this movie, you know, they build up Lily Frankie's dad character to be kind of a despicable human being. But then when you get to the second half, you kind of have not really remorse, but rather you kind of question that dislike for Lily Frankie's characters. You know, how exactly should you feel about his character, especially with the way he has impacted these other people's lives. I mean, in the end, he's still kind of a scumbag for bouncing out on his family, but what I like about this movie is that this movie makes you question that kind of opinion about him. All right, here we go. Top 3. And at number 3, we have My Dad and Mr. Ito. Directed by Tanada Yuki, and also starring Lily Frankie here. And we also have Ueno Juri and Fuji Tatsuya. The story of My Dad and Mr. Ito. We have Aya, and she's living with her boyfriend, Mr. Ito, or Ito-san. And he's about 20 years older than Aya. But one day they get contacted by Aya's older brother or rather they get requested by the older brother to basically house their dad, because currently dad lives with older brother, and they can't stand dad. Because then when you meet dad for the first time, you can kind of understand he complains about everything. He's really demanding from everything, from the type of things that should be around him to even his food. And he's kind of he's just a big handful. And so what happens is that this small apartment of Aya and Mr. Ito, they welcome a third resident by the form of dad. And so this story is about how the three interact and, you know, understand each other, especially when you have dad who observes that his daughter's dating a man 20 years older than her. So what I like about this movie is that, first of all, this movie has a really good setup. And it starts off as how I described the synopsis, but it actually dives deeper into that. You know, when you first meet Mr. Ito, he seems kind of like a slacker. You know, he's Lily Frankie. He has that kind of personality or that kind of aura about him. But then the more you go into the story, the more you kind of don't really know, or you don't know much about Mr. Ito and the way, and like how important he is to the relationship between Aya and her dad. Because the way the story is that the dad's relationship with his children isn't so good, just because of the way his personality is. And it's almost not really broken per se, but the kids almost want nothing to do with him. But then this movie is about repairing that kind of relationship and kind of going into why the relationship has become like that in the first place. Next up at number 2, we have Final Fantasy XIV, the movie Dad of Light, directed by Yamamoto Kiyoshi and starring Yoshida Kotaro and Sakaguchi Kentaro. And this movie is based off of a TV drama which you can find on Netflix, which itself is based off of a true story apparently. And it's about this father and son whose relationship isn't really the best. Like, you know, they had fond memories growing up. Like, they played the original Final Fantasy on the Famicom when the son was a child, but then as adults, they really don't have the best of relationships. But then one day dad retires and is just at home most of the time. And so the son takes it upon himself to attempt to repair their relationship by buying him a PlayStation 4 and setting him up with an account for Final Fantasy XIV. And the son himself, of course, plays Final Fantasy XIV, and his plan is to basically have them meet in the world of Final Fantasy XIV, and they go on quest together without actually revealing the son's identity. And the overall aim with this plan is to break the ice, and in effect, hopefully repair their broken relationship. And that's something that this movie does really well. There has so many cute moments, because, you know, you have a daddy, he doesn't even play games at all, but then he's trying to play Final Fantasy XIV. So he's actually going back and forth between asking his son for help, who he isn't aware is playing the game. You know, he goes to his room, asks for help, then goes to the game, back to the game, and then tries to attempt things on his own. And it just makes for so many cute and adorable moments. So I think when it comes to lighthearted, but at the same time effective father and son movies, I think Dad of Light is probably up there as one of my favorites, if not my all-time favorite. Next up at number 1, it's definitely my favorite movie out of all the ones I featured here on this list. And it's also my favorite movie directed by Kore-eda Hirokazu, and that is Like Father, Like Son, starring Fukuyama Masaharu and Lily Frankie. The story of like father, like son. You know, we have two dads. One is played by Fukuyama, one is played by Lily Frankie. And Fukuyama's character, he comes from a very, how do you say, elite kind of background. And Lily Frankie comes from a more humble kind of background. But, you know, throughout their son's life, Fukuyama wonders how come his son can't catch on to things the same way that he could. You know, as if there was some kind of mistake that maybe he isn't his son. Well, it turns out it's actually true. Fukuyama's son isn't actually his own. And at childbirth, his son and Lily Frankie's son were switched accidentally. So for 6 years, they've been raising the wrong kids. So they are given the option to take back their biological sons or to keep raising the sons that they have been raising this whole time. At least that's how the story starts. But what I like about Like Father, Like Son is that it really, how do you say it? It goes into much depth to really explore what really makes a father-son relationship a father-son relationship. I think by default, the deepest connective tissue one can have is being biologically related to, you know, to your father, to your son. But this movie explores beyond that. And that's something that I really like, not only about this movie, but also a typical kore-eda movie. So anyways, yes, these are 10 movies from Japan, which I recommend that you can enjoy on Father's Day. Do you guys have any other recommendations? Please let me know in the comment section below. And please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Follow me on all the social media channels. And by all means, if you really dig my content, feel free to support this channel by hitting that notification bell so you can get updated every time I upload a new video. And also check out my Patreon page, which you can find in the description area below. And yeah, that's about it for me, guys. And as always, everyone, thank you so much for watching, and thank you so much to my patrons over at Patreon and supporting this channel. And for everyone else, I'll catch you all in the next video. Take it easy.